Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Man, we are officially into summer here. We've got lots of warm, hot days, and what that means is a lot of actively feeding fish at night, and therefore a lot of anglers start going out after hours to catch their fish. Now, your nighttime bait selection is going to be a little bit different than your daytime bait selection, just based on how you're fishing and the fact that you've got low light conditions, and therefore you can do things and make choices that will help you catch more fish during the nighttime period. In fact, I would say that you've got potentially the best opportunity at catching a true giant or one of the biggest bass in the lakes that you're fishing if you're fishing during the night. These are definitely some of the best times to fish, and if you happen to live down south where the days are so dang hot that a lot of nighttime tournaments occur. So from that standpoint, I wanted to address with you some of my absolute favorite baits and give you two old time baits that I definitely think you should consider using at night. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about here is one of the old time baits. This is just an old classic shallow running Rapala fat wrap. Maybe you can see all the teeth marks on it. I have caught hundreds and hundreds of bass and dogfish and pike and muskie on this bait. This is actually a cool bait to me. I hang it on my wall behind me because this I had as a child, caught a bunch of fish on it, caught a bunch of personal bests at the time on it, and ended up losing it to a really large bass. The next day, my dad actually was out swimming in the lake we were staying at and ran into a guy that found my bass on the surface with that bait in its mouth. So the guy actually gave the bait back to my dad while he was swimming across the lake. So I got the bait back, and ever since then I've kind of retired it just based on memory's sake. But a shallow running wake bait style bait is an excellent choice during the nighttime period. Throw it out, retrieve it nice and slow so it creates the V on the surface, and it will generate a lot of strikes. Now, if you can't find an old shallow running fat wrap, another good selection is a lot of your wake bait style baits these days. This is a Berkley Surge Shad in the Maverick color. You can see it's all black. I personally prefer to use really dark colors during the night, just based on giving the fish a darker silhouette to try to key in on. Especially if you're talking about nights that have full moons, the fish can really pick out that dark bait on the surface. But a surge shad or other either long wake bait or more compact wake bait style crankbait can be a great choice during the nighttime period. Today's video is brought to you by the Deep Dive app, which will help you select the best fishing places in the lake with features like the lake level, the current flow, the top baits tool, which will help you select the best baits for certain locations throughout the lake. Whether that's a clear water, stained water, dirty water, it'll choose the best bait for that location, provide you with all the information like what structure, what retrieve, different reel, all of the information that you need to catch the fish. This is in the app. The cool part about this app, though, is it's not just based on areas. It does provide you with specific tournament winning data that has been collected to help you figure out your best choices for baits and locations for whatever region of the lake it is that you want to fish. On top of that, not only does the app provide you with best locations, it gives you water clarity as well. So maybe you're on a lake like Lake Eufaula, where there is a bunch of different water clarity located throughout the entire lake. This will help you identify the clearest portions as well as the dirtiest portions of the lake. Plus, the Deep Dive app has now added the wind effect map, which is going to take all of the different wind conditions for the past couple of days and show you what banks on the lake are being hit the hardest. They also have inflow points that show you different places throughout the lake where your water is being flushed into the lake through different ditches and creeks and rivers, providing you with high percentage places to fish and letting you know what parts of the lake are going to be the best areas after a rain. Check out the Deep Dive app to help you become a better angler. Now, another and potentially the most popular nighttime bait choice is a big spinner bait. So this is a Picasso Invisawire Rumbler blade. You can see it's got one really big Colorado blade style. It's the black nickel color. And then this is just the black, the purple color that they have. The Rumbler comes in a lot of different nighttime colors. So your blacks, your black and blues, your purple, just a dynamite spinnerbait. But the key here is you've got really big Colorado blade that creates a huge thumping feeling. This bait specifically almost feels like a crankbait coming through the water, but it also helps the bait ride up higher in the water column. So from that standpoint, it just gives the fish something to key in on, something to track, and generate some extremely big bites. So check out the Picasso Rumbler. That's one of my absolute favorites. And then you got to look at fishing topwaters. I think, you know, what happens during the nighttime is you get a lot of your shad, a lot of your forage species come up to the surface because the phytoplankton is all rising to the surface. So your start of the food chain is high up in the water column, which means the game fish that are feeding on those shad and those bait fish are also high up in the water column. And your topwater baits excel from that standpoint. So for me, what I like to do is throw topwater baits that are consistently moving, but you can retrieve them at a slower speed and create a lot of commotion. And that's where this Chapo by Berkley comes into play. So your plopper style baits, it's basically similar to a buzz bait, but I prefer the Chapo because I've got a couple of treble hooks and a bigger profile for that fish to key in on versus say throwing a buzz bait. But to me, the Chapo, again, in the Maverick color, all black, must have for night fishing. And then if we're moving to another old school bait, some of you guys might want to laugh at me for this one, but your old black jitterbug. So this is a black one. I just plucked this off the wall. I actually found this bait floating about 5 miles offshore in the middle of Lake Erie when I was there for a tournament. But the reason for that is because it's a phenomenal nighttime fishing bait. The jitterbug by Arbogast still catches them to this day. I recommend the black one personally, but I've caught, over the years, I have caught probably hundreds of bass on a black jitterbug. Still catches them to today. You know, it's probably been out since, I'm going to say the 30s or 40s, somewhere in that time frame. So you're almost looking at 100 years of bass catching for the jitterbug. The last bait then that I want to talk about is one that I think a lot of the diehard night fishermen are aware of, but you don't hear nearly talked about as much when you're talking about nighttime fishing. And that's your bigger, either ribbon tail worms or your cutter tail worms. This is the Zoom Magnum speed worm. So generally speaking, you're talking about a bigger worm. So your 8+ inch size baits, and then one that has some commotion on the tail to allow the fish to really key in on it. I personally like the Magnum speed worm because it's a bigger, bulkier worm, but that tail gives a ton of kicking motion. So I'll fish these generally on shallower flats, and I'll fish it where I'm straight retrieving it, kill it, straight retrieve it, kill it. Sometimes I'll even bring it up to the surface and let the tail kind of just sputter on the surface, but it's a bait that works extremely well if you happen to be fishing, you know, some flats that have some grass on it, maybe have some wood on it. And if you're throwing either a submergent or emergent bait with treble hooks, you might be getting hung up. That's when I'll switch to a Texas rigged Magnum speed worm. Just something that, again, has a little bit bigger profile, but puts off a lot of commotion that the fish can really try to key in on. But do not sleep on night fishing. You know, night fishing is one of those things where if you have the appropriate gear, maybe you put a headlamp in the boat, you've got good lights in the boat that you can turn on if you need them. The night fish bite gives you the opportunity of catching a lot of fish and some really, really big fish. So if you don't want to get out and fish during the 100-degree temps in the middle of the summer, think about heading out in much cooler, comfortable nighttime temps and have much better fishing at the same time. If you do happen to head out, check out these baits. I'll put links for these in the video description as well, so you guys can check them out yourself. Otherwise, if you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.